Radio Rahim with Adam Smith. You know, one thing you got to know is when you are out of your level, right? So Adam comes with this incredible scarf, this jacket, this stylish British, so I just dressed down. I was like, you know what? I can't compete with this. And I had my good senses about me. This top table here, some people think that one of these two guys is out of their depth. For all the matchups that we're talking about and all the history and all the stuff, when it boils down, you take all that away, is this a 50-50 fight? Are these guys actually on equal footing, or is it something of a mismatch?
It's a difficult fight to untangle and to work out, because I think a couple of years ago when they were meant to fight, I wasn't sure about the weight then. I've known Conor and Chris forever, and obviously Chris is a super middleweight, Conor a super lightweight, really welterweight. But I think in the last couple of years, as Nigel set up there, he walks around bigger. He's obviously a lot smaller physically, but I don't know. He's fresh. He wants it so desperately. And Chris Jr. was stopped by Liam Smith. Okay, exacted revenge in a brilliant way. Has fought at a higher level, mixing with the likes of George Groves and Billy Joe Saunders. And Conor hasn't done any of that yet. But this is just a sort of one-off fight. It's different. There's so much into it. There's so many emotions and feelings and tactics and all of that running around. And sometimes I think, is this going to be like Nigel Benn against Michael Watson, where Benn was ferocious and he was knocking out everybody, and then Michael just stood up to him and just countered him and stopped him. And I wonder if Eubank Jr. is thinking about that he just waits for the storm to subside, and then he'll utilize his boxing skills and maybe his size as well, and win the fight. But you can't predict this. I don't think anyone can predict this fight. I think it's a strange one, but I think what we can predict, it's huge. And it's huge because of the rivalry, because of the needle, because of Chris Eubank's premeditated move on Tuesday. It's gone viral. Everyone wants to be here. Everyone's talking about it. It's like a football match, isn't it? It's Eubank or Benn. It's like Froch, it's Groves, it's Liverpool or United. It's that sort of thing. And I think it's going to appeal to the casuals. And I think it's going to be massive that week in April.
I'm expecting a storm in the ring in April, but it may be Eubank utilizing the storm against Benn. With all of this needle that you talk about, he does seem very much in control up there, while Benn at every moment seems just brimming, almost ready to explode. Obviously, the egg shenanigan may have even been there just to push him over the edge a bit. I see, because we all look at the egg replay, but then you have to see the moments afterwards where the security is holding Ben back and he is like a wild animal in there. That can't work in his favor in the ring, or do you think?
Adi Oladipo said it was 10-7 in Eubank's favour on Tuesday and 10-8 tonight. And I don't think that's about right. I think he's completely controlled the press conferences. He shut Eddie up. He dug Eddie out about the undercard fighters. And Eddie normally runs the show. And that's where he revels. He's amazing at it. But Chris was so clever the way he did that. And then to bring up the Nigel round the throat, knew that it would roll Conor. So off he went again. So, of course, it's all to get under Conor's skin. And I think Conor does live and breathe this. And I think Chris floats around his head, and it could work for him and that he could put on the performance of his life, or it could work against him. Exactly like Nigel Benn when he fought Michael Watson. Watson kept his cool, utilised his boxing skill, won the day.
You reckon that Eubank has got Ben on a string, though? Is he manipulating him mentally at the moment?
Of course he's manipulating him, and he's controlling the whole thing, and he's making this a bigger event than it is. And for him, he's a businessman as well. It is about money, but it is also about legacy too. But you see Nigel and Conor, they're all about this win, for the Benn name. It's huge for them. Whereas we haven't seen Senior, unfortunately, but we've got Ronnie Davis, Jonathan Banks, Ben Shalom. It's a bit of a sort of strange team up there.
Well,
seeing Ronnie is great because that gives it real gravitas. But I think that Eubank thinks he plays with Conor Benn. I think that's what he thinks. And I think Conor Benn thinks he smashes him to pieces. So the best thing is, no one knows. We're all going to be tuning in. And it's a huge event in Britain. And it's going to be sold out within seconds.
I'd say the one moment when Eubank doesn't seem in control completely is when the fact that his father isn't here is brought up. That's the one barb that seems to shut him down. He doesn't have a comeback for that. He doesn't want to engage that. What do you take away from that?
Yeah, look, they've had a real difficult 3 or 4 years, the Eubank family, of course. losing Sebastian, he was so lovely, and that was an absolute tragedy for them. And it's been difficult, and I guess that we haven't seen Chris on the scene much, and I'd love to have him back around this fight, not for necessarily for the pomp and the show and that, and I just love to see him around his son. And I think, fathers and sons, I've got a son, I've got 2 daughters, but it's a special bond. It's a great connection. And of course, with all of this talk about what the fathers were like and going back and going down memory lane, it would be great to see Senior around. So I think that is the only thing, with Junior. But he's such a hardened, cool individual that I don't think anything really troubles him. I think he knows he's got a job to do. His job in the last 2 press conferences was to rile up Conor Benn, make him mad, make him want to come at him and take his head off. And that will play into the tactics that Jonathan Banks and Ronnie Davis will come up with, which I think will be to outbox and try and outclass Conor Benn. But we haven't seen the best of Conor Benn, and maybe we'll see it on April the 26th.
You're one of the few people who have seen both of these families up close over the decades. When Eubank describes himself as a bad guy, and that he's accepted his role in the British press as a bad guy, and the fans hate him as a villain.
He doesn't care.
He says he doesn't care.
He doesn't care.
And then he bestows that same honor on Ben, who he claims isn't accepting it. Do you think that Conor Benn is, in fact, a villain in the eyes of the boxing fan? Does he now wear the black hat?
Well, obviously what happened last time and all the difficulties and the question marks, and people aren't quite sure, I think, still what to make of all that. Have they forgotten it? I don't know. It's more about the rivalry here, I think. Okay, the egg is a little reminder, but ultimately the 2 guys are going to fight. I'm sure the board, it sounds like the board are going to give Conor his British license back. So everything's sort of past now. We've got to concentrate on this. And this is the fight that we weren't sure we were ever going to see, but I think we all hoped we would, because it's a grudge match. And we love grudge matches. And that's back to the days of Eubank and Benn, or Barrera and Morales and the trilogy they had in my early days of Sky. And then in recent times, Froch Groves, Khan Brook, Dillian White and Derek Chisora, AJ and Dillian, loads of them. And I just think it sells. And I think also this is like a football fan's fight, because the casuals are going to lap this up, because there'll be one side or the other. The pubs will be split. You'll either love Eubank or you'll love Benn, or you'll hate Eubank or you'll hate Benn, but you'll want to watch it.
Well, for Ben's sake, he says that there is no cure in the press for Eubank being a wanker. But is there still redemption out there for Benn? Is it a win that gets him that? I mean, we in the press have actually kind of stopped asking about the drug testing, TikTok, and how he got cleared and all that. Simon Jordan, however, is still on that. Is still on the case. He still pulls him up on that every time. Would Eubank?
As everything is dismantled.
As everything falls apart.
It falls apart. We'll try and keep it together, right?
Would coming out with just explaining how he got cleared make a difference? I mean, you hear Eddie say, well, you can't win. But at the same time, Simon, I think, makes a point in that if you can't say how you got cleared, then they're never going to forgive you for it. I don't even know if a win here will get that cleared off his table.
It's very difficult, and boxing fans will always remember these situations, and it is the lack of clarity, I think, that we all struggle with. When it comes to drugs in sport, no one wants drugs in sport. It's obviously the most dangerous sport of all in boxing, and you just want to be on a level playing field every single time. And everybody's opinion on drugs in the sport is that they have no place, and what the bans are, or whether they should be banned for life, and that's all subjective, obviously. But I think, look, we've sort of moved on. It's like we're never going to solve this, I don't think. I think Conor Benn is convinced he's clean the whole time. The contamination of eggs, and the egg was thrown, and Chris has made it very clear what he believes and maybe what others do. But ultimately, they're going to fight. So it doesn't really matter. It's like they will be remembered for who wins this fight, because of the history and the legacy and the needle that on April the 27th, when they wake up, one of them is going to have a whole weight off his shoulders, and the other one's going to have a lot more weight on his shoulders.
Well, last one before we go deaf in here. Eubank has been quite humorous in insisting that it's not the weight that is a differential. And when Ronnie Davis comes out every time and says it's the weight first, is it the skill that gives him the advantage? Or is it, in fact, as much as he, to his chagrin, the weight?
Does a big guy beat a good big guy, beat a good little guy? You know, Lennox Lewis always used to say that when he fought like Holyfield and stuff. But I think that's changed in boxing. Manny Pacquiao went through the weights. Alexander Usyk, like heavy, cruiserweight king, heavyweight domination, pound for pound best. Lighter fighters, smaller fighters, sometimes they're more natural at the weight rather than crashing it down. But he's going to be much more, much physically bigger. Just look at the two of them together. I don't think it's just going to come down to size. I think it's going to come down to skills. I think Eubank has been around world class. That's the difference in levels. But he's older. So these are the questions. Should Chris Eubank win? Has he fought at a higher level? He's the bigger guy. Yes, yes, yes. But was he stopped by Liam Smith? He's been beaten before. He's maybe not quite the fighter he once was. And he might struggle to get down in the weight and the rehydration. It's all in the pot, Radio Rahim, and we're going to love the build-up on that week in April. And Fight Night's going to be electric here at Spurs because it's a great stadium for boxing. We've had it before with AJ Usyk. I think it's going to be unbelievable on the night. And the British fight fans are the winners.
I'm so glad that we're in the pot together, however not fighting, because this is the heavyweight. He's at the top level, and I get to be in his company and actually being inspired by and guided by your career and your success. Incredible to talk to you every time. I appreciate it. Radio Rahim with Adam Smith.